Our story begins with a man who married the ugliest woman in the world, bound by law to her alone, because she is the daughter of Zhu Di, the Prince of Yan. Marrying a princess meant giving up any hope of taking a second wife, but the real catch was that Princess Yong'an had been left hideously scarred by a great fire 3 years ago. Because her appearance was so unfortunate, Zhu Di had posted a public notice to find her a husband, yet not a single soul had been able to pass the test. However, upon hearing the news, our protagonist's eyes lit up with a golden glow. It seemed the opportunity he had been waiting for had finally arrived. You see, he didn't actually belong to this world, but came from the future equipped with a sweet love system that would activate once he bound himself to a woman. Every romantic gesture would earn him points to spend in the system mall, and there was a very specific condition for maximizing those rewards. The higher the status of the woman he bound, the more his points would multiply, making him extremely cautious, until he considered the daughter of Prince Zhu Di. As a princess, her status was already incredibly noble, and according to the flow of history, it wouldn't be long before her rank rose even higher. In ancient times, a princess held the highest possible status, which would trigger a 100-fold critical strike on his love points. A tempting prospect indeed. So, the very next day, he accepted the royal notice and arrived at the Prince of Yan's mansion, where the guards, not daring to delay, immediately went to report his arrival. Inside the main hall, where the prince and his 3 sons were discussing matters, their eyes lit up the moment they heard someone had finally answered the call. Zhu Gaoxiu stood up quickly and bowed slightly to his father, offering to go meet the man himself, and Zhu Di gave a small nod of approval. Zhu Gaoxiu turned and walked toward the entrance, and a moment later, the heavy gates of the prince's mansion creaked open. A handsome young man stepped out. This was Zhu Gaoxiu, and he carefully sized up the man who had come to claim the royal notice. His first impression was quite favorable. The stranger had tan skin and a handsome face that rivaled his own, but more importantly, he looked honest. He had a kind of approachable air about him, so our protagonist quickly cupped his hands in respect as Gaoxiu asked for his name and occupation. Not daring to be rude, he replied that his name was Li Xiao, a farmer from Wanping County, before politely asking for the other man's title. Zhu Gaoxiu looked at him and simply told him to follow, leading the way into the mansion without revealing his own high rank just yet. It was clear at a glance that this young man had no prestigious background, but this time, the prince wasn't looking for a match of equal status. They only needed someone who would be truly good to the princess. So Li Xiao bowed again and followed him through the winding corridors into a grand hall. Please, take a seat. Bring some tea, Zhu Gaoxiu commanded, before making himself comfortable in the seat of honor while our protagonist found a stool nearby. A maid soon arrived with the refreshments, and Gaoxiu, without even glancing at his guest, simply told him to take his time and drink. Li Xiao remained composed, sipping his tea as a heavy silence filled the room, a silence that suggested things wouldn't be quite so simple. Marrying a princess required passing Gaoxiu's scrutiny first. After all, a royal daughter couldn't just be handed over to any commoner from the countryside. As they drank, Gaoxiu studied him closely, using the refined standards of a royal family to judge a man's character through his every movement. To be honest, the impression Li Xiao gave was quite good. He looked like a simple farmer with no grand schemes, possessing a kind and gentle face. However, whether he could withstand the trials to come remained to be seen, as they continued drinking tea in silence for nearly an hour. It lasted so long that Li Xiao was starting to feel the physical strain, until a servant finally rushed in to whisper in Gaoxiu's ear. The report was in. This man was indeed Li Xiao, a farmer from Deshuku village in Wanping County, whose family had farmed that land for generations. At 21 years old, he lived alone following the death of his parents last year, having never been married or fathered any children. His background was perfectly clean, which was exactly why Gaoxiu had been stalling. He needed to verify every detail of this stranger's history. They had to ensure he wasn't some scoundrel abandoning a secret family to chase wealth, and Gaoxiu gave a small, satisfied nod at the findings. Since the princess was scarred, her status was no longer the priority. They simply wanted someone who would treat her with genuine kindness. A man with no strings attached would certainly cause fewer headaches, provided, of course, that he could handle the pressure of the moment. Suddenly, Gaoxiu's expression shifted into a mask of rage as he slammed his hand down and stood up, glaring intensely at the young farmer. Li Xiao, how dare a common peasant like you try to climb into the house of Yan? Tell me your true purpose. This was the real test. Gaoxiu was a high-ranking noble and a skilled warrior, and his presence alone was enough to make most men tremble. Any ordinary person would have been terrified by such a fierce rebuke, but Li Xiao had spent the previous night preparing for exactly this. Drawing on the mental strength of 2 lifetimes, he quickly regained his composure and calmly told the prince's son that he was mistaken. Gaoxiu snorted in disbelief, asking if he dared to disagree, and Li Xiao stood his ground, much to the noble's hidden surprise. Zhu Gaoxiu was genuinely surprised to see this kid show such backbone, daring to talk back when the previous candidates had all been paralyzed by fear. When asked what was wrong, Li Xiao respectfully gestured toward the heavens, citing that in the 18th year of Hongwu, the emperor himself spoke of agriculture. He noted that while some abandon the essentials for the trivial, the emperor decreed that if farmers do not produce, they should be punished by hunger. Since agriculture is the foundation, how could a farmer be dismissed as a mere country bumpkin? Such a title would surely contradict the emperor's own philosophy. To suggest otherwise would be a great sign of disrespect, a statement that left Gao Xiu completely stunned. This kid certainly had something to him. He wondered if these were truly the words of a simple farmer, demanding to know who Li Xiao really was. Now, it was Gao Xiu's turn to be shocked. He had intended to intimidate the young man, only to find himself outmaneuvered. Gao Xiu wasn't much for books and wasn't sure if his grandfather had actually said that. However, his grandfather, Zhu Yuanzhang, had indeed prioritized farming, having been born a peasant himself. Calling a farmer a bumpkin was a bit risky. It did seem to insult his grandfather's legacy, yet he couldn't fathom how a commoner knew this. Li Xiao simply maintained his humble, yet firm posture. He insisted he was just a farmer, but Gao Xiu frowned, accusing him of lying, unable to believe a peasant could be so well-informed. Li Xiao smiled and explained that during his breaks from farming, he enjoyed borrowing books from a local teacher to pass the time. This was actually the truth. With no other entertainment available, reading was his only escape, and his knowledge of Ming history certainly helped. Having prepared for this, he managed to keep Gao Xiu off balance. The noble snorted, asking why a farmer would bother reading such things anyway. Gao Xiu accused him of being a social climber, suggesting he only studied in hopes of one day latching onto the coattails of the nobility. Li Xiao shook his head with a smile, explaining that reading was meant to broaden one's horizons and bring inner peace and wisdom. It was about expanding the dimensions of one's mind, he argued, not about seeking status. To Gao Xiu, this sounded just like his old tutors. He was tired of hearing words he didn't quite understand and decided to cut the nonsense, demanding the real reason Li Xiao wanted to marry the princess. We can see that this is the final test. If he can handle this question, the path forward should be clear. Li Xiao took a calm sip of tea. He explained quietly that his love for learning had elevated his way of thinking, which created a bit of a problem back in his village. Because his perspective had shifted so much, he found that he and the local village girls were no longer on the same wavelength. He spoke of finding a woman who could resonate with his spirit and share a life of intellectual harmony, which only made Zhu Gaoxiu frown and demand he speak plain English. Realizing he had perhaps overestimated his audience, Li Xiao pivoted, explaining that he didn't care for looks, but rather a wife with cultivation and grace. He claimed to seek a woman who loved the scent of books and the act of reading, a clever angle he had prepared, knowing how rare literate women were in this era. However, he knew the princess consort, Sun Yan, was a renowned scholar of her time, and it was highly likely her daughter, the princess of Yangon, followed suit. It was a perfectly logical excuse, and finally, Gao Xiu seemed to understand. This man named Li Xiao wanted a learned woman he simply couldn't find in a village. Naturally, a prince's daughter would be well-educated. To Gao Xiu, it made sense that Li Xiao would look for a wife based on talent rather than mere appearance. His sister was indeed a woman of both talent and beauty, though after a certain tragic incident, her beauty had faded, leaving only her brilliant mind behind. Suddenly, Gao Xiu felt this kid might actually be the one. After so long, he had finally found a candidate who wasn't chasing wealth or status, but true intellect. Yet, he kept his poker face, testing the young man further by claiming the princess actually preferred embroidery and only had a passing interest in books. Upon hearing that she didn't actually enjoy reading, Li Xiao felt a moment of silent frustration, wondering if he had just shot himself in the foot. But since he was already committed to the act, he simply cupped his hands respectfully and apologized, stating that if that were the case, he would take his leave. Without a single backward glance, he turned and began to walk away with total determination, nearly disappearing from the courtyard entirely. Only when Li Xiao was almost out of sight did Gao Xiu realize the boy wasn't faking. He was actually leaving. At that realization, the prince finally broke. Gao Xiu rushed forward in a few quick strides, shouting for his brother to wait. Li Xiao turned back, realizing this had been one final, elaborate test. It seems Gao Xiu wasn't quite as ignorant as the history books suggested. To be honest, the man had a surprising amount of cunning hidden beneath that gruff exterior. With an apologetic laugh, Gao Xiu admitted the truth. His sister had loved reading since she was a child, and he had only been testing the young man's resolve. He explained that the Zhu family didn't let just anyone in, and Li Xiao played along, feigning surprise that the prince had such a thoughtful hidden agenda. Li Xiao remarked that while the prince looked like a fierce warrior, his mind was far more intricate than he let on, prompting Gao Xiu to ask for a more specific opinion. He told the prince that he possessed the heart of a tiger but the attention to detail of someone sniffing a rose, a bit of poetic flattery that worked wonders. The compliment left Gao Xiu feeling absolutely delighted. After all, who doesn't enjoy being told they have the soul of a fierce but sophisticated predator? Zhu Gaoxiu beamed, thinking to himself that he finally found someone who recognized his depth rather than just his martial skill. His favor toward the young man surged instantly. With a booming laugh, he waved a hand and told Li Xiao to follow him. He was taking him to see his sister, the Princess Ningyun. After following Gaoxiu through several winding corridors, we arrive at another palace. As soon as they stepped inside, the scene changed entirely. we see a woman who clearly possessed a graceful spirit, yet her appearance had been tragically altered by severe burn scars. The scars spread across her face like a web, with damaged skin and raw marks that extended down to her hands and beneath her robes. Gao Xiu introduced her as his eldest sister, Princess Ningyun, and presented Li Xiao as a young man he found quite impressive. While introducing them, Gao Xiu kept a sharp eye on Li Xiao's reaction, watching for even the slightest hint of revulsion. If the boy showed fear, his claims of not caring about looks would be proven false, a mistake many others had made before being beaten by the prince. Li Xiao bowed respectfully to the princess, remaining perfectly calm without showing a single trace of fear or disgust on his face. Because he had prepared himself mentally, he looked at her with total composure. Just then, the system's voice rang in his ears. The notification revealed her name was actually Zhang Cuizue, a 16-year-old maidservant currently posing as the princess. With a threefold multiplier at stake, the system asked if he wished to bind with her, a choice that would be permanent once made. He realized that if he acted too eager or ignored her appearance entirely, he might be seen as a schemer chasing wealth and status. So, with a slight frown and a plan forming in his mind, he turned toward Zhang Cuizue and gave a formal bow. He explained that at 21, he remained unmarried only because he had yet to find a soul who truly resonated with his own. He remarked that while beautiful faces are common, interesting souls are one in a million, and he had heard she was a scholar of the classics. He boldly stated that while she could choose him, he also had the right to choose her, asking if he might be so bold as to test her. He proposed a riddle to see if she could answer. This statement left everyone in the room stunned by his sheer audacity. Gao Xiu shouted in anger, asking who he thought he was to speak to the princess in such a manner, but the princess herself remained silent. The princess seemed momentarily stunned, her gaze drifting toward a corner of the room before returning to Li Xiao as she gave him permission to speak. Gao Xiu let out a sharp huff and waved his sleeve, remaining silent as Li Xiao nodded and began to recite a poem about the sorrow of parting. He spoke of the longing of the Qixi festival and the fleeting nature of time, then respectfully asked the princess to provide the matching couplet. After a long silence, Princess Ningyun shook her head and admitted she could not complete it. Hearing this, Li Xiao bowed and prepared to depart. He turned to leave without a second glance, unaware that behind a white jade screen in the north of the room, another woman was watching. This hidden woman watched with eyes as deep and shimmering as a galaxy, though her face, much like the maidservant outside, was scarred. The fire had taken much, yet those peerless eyes suggested that before the tragedy, she must have been as graceful as a drifting cloud. She thought of his words, that beautiful faces are common but interesting souls are rare, and wondered if such a man truly existed. The real Princess Ningyun watched him in a daze, while Li Xiao continued walking away without looking back, his plan in full motion. He knew perfectly well that the maidservant Zhang Cuizue was a decoy, and that the real princess was likely observing from the shadows. If he had shown disgust or acted like a desperate social climber, his true motives would have been questioned immediately by the watchful prince. By acting as though he only valued talent over status, he managed to pass what was, in fact, Gao Xiu's ultimate test. The maidservant had suffered the same tragedy as the princess, and Gao Xiu was determined not to let his sister be chosen like common produce. A rigorous screening was necessary, and seeing Li Xiao walk away simply because the princess lacked literary wit was a powerful statement. Gao Xiu actually began to panic. After this display, he was convinced that this young man was exactly the kind of person they needed. Of course, the final decision rested with Ningyun herself, who had become a recluse and grown increasingly frail since her accident. As her younger brother, Gao Xiu was worried sick and hoped to find someone who could truly cherish her for who she was. It had taken years of persuasion to get her to agree to find a life partner, leading to this public search for a worthy suitor. Li Xiao was the first person in years to make it to this final stage, and his love for literature made him a perfect match for her. Realizing they shared the same soul-deep interests, Gao Xiu hurriedly chased after him, desperate not to let this opportunity slip away. Gao Xiu turned toward the screen and asked anxiously, "Sister, what do you think of him?" Behind that screen stood a woman with a truly elegant figure. However, her features remained hidden, shielded by a bamboo hat and white silk veil. Princess Ningyun's gaze was lonely as her lips moved slightly. Her voice was as pleasant as pearls falling on a jade plate. "He is interesting," she admitted, "but I have long intended to never marry." She had been secretly observing Li Xiao, noting his handsome face and sun-kissed skin. He was quite easy on the eyes, to be honest. While men like him are common enough, it was his words that made her soul tremble with a sudden, bright spark of hope. She knew all too well what people whispered behind her back, calling her a monster, yet he claimed that interesting souls were the true rarity. It was the first time Ningyun had ever heard such a thing, and for someone so haunted by her lost beauty, the sentiment was profound. Li Xiao's words felt like the warmth of a winter sun, touching her deeply. "I don't want you to be alone forever," Gao Xiu added anxiously. He pleaded with his sister not to let this pass, hoping she could find happiness, especially since he had personally tested the man's character. Ningyun considered it, but ultimately shook her head. He seemed decent, but could a man truly face a monster every day for a lifetime? 1 year might be possible, or even 2, but what about 3? Who could guarantee he wouldn't grow resentful or lose interest over time? She wondered if, once he gained power and status through the prince's estate, he would simply abandon his original intentions. With too many worries weighing on her, Ningyun gritted her teeth and turned to leave, telling herself not to get caught in her own web. Her brother, despite his lack of formal education, knew that such a rare opportunity might never come again, and she would regret it forever. Gao Xiu begged her to at least keep him around and get to know him first, suggesting they could always part ways later if it didn't work out. Ningyun tried to walk away, but Gao Xiu stubbornly blocked her path, unwilling to let the first suitable candidate in years just slip through their fingers. His sister was already 18, past the typical age for marriage, and while her younger sisters had all wed, he couldn't bear her being alone. She demanded he move, but he refused to budge until she agreed. It was a bit of a shameless display, if we are being honest. He leaned into his role as the annoying younger brother, insisting she just give herself a chance without committing to marriage immediately. Seeing her brother's fierce persistence, Ningyun finally lowered her head in resignation, thinking that perhaps she could give herself this one opportunity. And so, a single chance was granted. From behind the screen, the princess finally whispered a response to the couplet, her voice drifting toward Li Xiao like a distant traveler. Her words spoke of longing and gentle affection lasting half a year, of stealing moments of peace in a dream. We see Li Xiao stop in his tracks as the poetry fades. Zhu Gaoxu walked out with a grin, asking Li Xiao what he thought of his sister's response. Li Xiao frowned, realizing the voice had indeed come from behind that screen. Gaoxu gave an awkward laugh, explaining it was all just another test and asking if his sister's talent wasn't impressive. Li Xiao felt a bit helpless. It was impressive, certainly. However, he couldn't help but feel these tests were becoming a bit much. Gaoxu patted his chest, promising there were no more, as Li Xiao turned to bow toward the screen. He complimented the princess, noting her response was perfectly balanced and rhythmically beautiful, surpassing his own. To find such talent in a woman was truly admirable. An ethereal voice drifted from behind the screen, telling him he was too kind. She found it far more admirable that a man from a rural village loved his books so dearly. Li Xiao bowed quickly as she continued, suggesting that since he had tested her with a couplet, she might now return the favor in her own way. He felt a sudden surge of caution. Couplets weren't exactly his strongest suit, but he had no choice but to cup his hands and ask the princess for her instruction. After a brief silence, she spoke again, noting his quick agreement. She remarked that couplets were a bit common and decided to change the challenge entirely. Instead, she asked him to compose a poem. Deep down, Li Xiao was overjoyed, even as Gaoxu whispered to his sister, wondering if the difficulty was getting too high. Li Xiao was quick to insist it wasn't too hard at all. Princess Ningyun then spoke slowly, noting that the spring imperial examinations were fast approaching. She challenged him to write a poem about the talents of the imperial exam. Li Xiao took less than a single step before the words began to pour out of him. He recited that while ancient poems are passed through 10,000 mouths, they are no longer fresh. For every age, new talents emerge to lead the way for centuries. The room fell into a heavy silence. Slowly, the princess stepped out from behind the screen, dressed in a flowing skirt with a white silk veil hiding her face. Li Xiao knew that beneath that veil lay a ruined countenance, yet her silhouette alone suggested she had once been as ethereal as a fairy under the moonlight. She softly called his name, asking if he truly came here out of admiration for her talent. He replied that as a man of humble birth, he had remained unmarried. He answered with complete sincerity, admitting he longed for both affection and a good name. After all, his system required her to truly fall in love with him. She stared at him intently, asking if he would truly have no regrets. As she spoke, a glowing screen suddenly manifested before his eyes, revealing her true identity. We see the details. Her name is Zhu Ningyun, 18 years old, the princess of Yangon and eldest daughter of the Prince of Yan, with a status multiplier of 50. The system asked if he wished to bind with her, warning that once activated, it could never be changed. Li Xiao felt a surge of joy at that 50 times multiplier. He didn't bind it immediately, choosing instead to answer her. He asked how he could regret it when he was already so happy. She fell silent, then asked again if he was truly sure. With a firm expression, he told her he would never regret it. Zhu Ningyun froze for a moment, then turned toward Zhu Gaoxiu, noting that marriage is a serious matter. She stated she would follow her father's arrangements and the words of the matchmakers before retreating into the inner room. Gaoxiu walked over with a wide smile. He told Li Xiao to stay for the time being while he reported the matter to his father, the prince. Li Xiao cupped his hands respectfully toward Prince Gaoxiu. The prince waved a hand, ordering his men to take the honored guest to the guest quarters. Li Xiao was led to a luxurious room where two maids soon arrived. They invited him to bathe and even offered to undress him. With a stern look, he firmly refused, insisting he could wash himself. To be honest, he wasn't used to such service. The maids retreated with quiet giggles, and only later did we learn this was yet another test. As Gaoxiu prepared to see the Prince of Yan, a servant arrived with news. Another man had arrived at the gates, hoping for an audience. Gaoxiu looked at the young man waiting there and asked for his name, his home, and his business. The young man bowed respectfully, introducing himself as Zhang He. His father was a magistrate, and he was a scholar currently on his way to the capital for the exams. He boasted that he would surely top the imperial list. Gao Xiu raised an eyebrow and challenged him to compose a poem about the talents of the imperial examination. The young man struggled for a long time, eventually producing nothing more than a clumsy nursery rhyme. Gao Xiu was unimpressed, to say the least, and told him to get out. The young man grew desperate, shouting that his father was a magistrate and he was a scholar. Before he could finish, Gao Xiu lost his patience and knocked him to the ground. He told the man to stop wasting his time, calling him a fraud who couldn't compare to Li Xiao. After this comparison, he was more certain than ever that Li Xiao was the one. He had already decided that this man would be his brother-in-law. That night, in the main hall, Gao Xiu gave a detailed report to the Prince of Yan, Zhu Di, and Princess Su Miaoyun. When he reached the part about the poem, Zhu Di suddenly stood up. He repeated the lines about how ancient poems are passed through 10,000 mouths but are no longer fresh. He recited the line about new talents emerging in every age to lead the way for centuries. Zhu Di was visibly shaken, wondering if a simple farmer could truly write this. The prince's wife, Su Miaoyun, also praised the beautiful verse. She remarked that it was no wonder Ningyun hadn't rejected the match this time. Sensing something deeper, Miaoyun asked if he was truly just a farmer. Nearby, the eldest son, Zhu Gaoqi, also questioned how a farmer could possess such talent. He asked his brother if he had thoroughly investigated the man's background. Gao Xiu puffed out his chest, confident in the man he had brought home. Zhu Gaoxiu explained that as soon as the man entered the manor, he sent people to investigate his background, confirming he came from generations of honest farmers. However, that poem made him feel something was fishy, wondering how a simple farmer could possess such talent, so he decided to investigate further. After settling Li Xiao in, he rode like the wind to Wanping County, making the local magistrate lead him directly to Deshuku village to uncover the truth. Zhu Di took a sip of tea and asked for the results, to which Gaoxiu replied that he had personally confirmed Li Xiao's humble roots in the village. His parents had passed away 6 months prior, leaving him 3 acres of land. Gaoxiu even personally inspected the house and the fields to be sure. The magistrate and the village head didn't dare hide a thing, and hearing this, Zhu Di nodded with a smile, pleased that the boy had no baggage. He noted that having talent was good, but he still wondered where such refined skill could have come from in a rural setting. Gaoxiu continued, explaining that in his spare time, Li Xiao would visit a local teacher named Old Li to borrow books and study by moonlight. This Old Li was the village's only scholar and a former private tutor. Gaoxiu had even questioned the old man personally to verify the story. Zhu Di laughed, noting that a farmer with a love for reading was a rare find indeed, and since Ningyun didn't object, the matter seemed settled. Su Miaoyun gave her husband a look, half amused and half annoyed, pointing out that he hadn't even met the man before deciding to play matchmaker. She worried whether Ningyun truly liked him, but Zhu Di just laughed, reminding his wife that they hadn't met before their own wedding either. He argued that as parents, they should have the final say, especially given Ningyun's unique situation, which made finding a husband quite difficult. He didn't want to see her grow old alone while all the other girls were married off, but Miaoyun wasn't entirely convinced by his logic. She raised her eyebrows, insisting that because of Ningyun's circumstances, they needed to be even more careful to ensure her future happiness. Zhu Di conceded the point and turned back to his second son, asking for an honest assessment of what kind of man this Li Xiao really was. Gaoxiu thought for a moment and admitted that from their brief encounter, the young man appeared to be honest, loyal, and quite thick-skinned. While he liked the lad, he acknowledged that one cannot truly know a person's heart, suggesting that his father, a great judge of character, meet him. Zhu Di agreed to a personal meeting, but then a clever idea struck him, and he gestured for his son to listen closely to a new plan. He noted that the great master was currently staying at the manor and told Gaoxiu to arrange for the monk to read the young man's fortune tomorrow. Zhu Di promised a heavy reward if the matter was handled well, and with a delighted look, Zhu Gaoxiu bowed and hurried out to begin. The eldest son also took his leave with a bow, and once the 2 brothers had departed, Zhu Di turned to Su Miaoyun with a smile. He asked if she was satisfied with the arrangement, to which she calmly replied that their daughter's lifelong happiness was not something to be trifled with. She also chided him for always being so stern with Gaoxiu. Meanwhile, under that same moonlight, we find Zhu Ningyun leaning against her windowsill. She had hardly left this room in 3 years, yet today, that young man, named Li Xiao, had managed to stir the stillness of her heart. Her maid, Zhang Tsuitsue, remarked that Li Xiao truly seemed like a decent sort of man during their encounter earlier that day. Ningyun worried aloud, wondering if he would feel disgusted once he finally saw her true face, a fear she had carried for a long time. Tsuitsue thought for a moment, noting that the young man hadn't shown a hint of revulsion when looking at her. Perhaps he really was different. Ningyun felt the same way deep down, yet she still asked for reassurance, wondering if such a thing could truly be possible. Tsuitsue insisted it was true, explaining that after years of sensing the judgment of others, she felt nothing of the sort in Li Xiao's gaze. She even teased that she was starting to feel a bit envious, prompting Ningyun to laugh and suggest she could have him if she liked him so much. Tete joked that Li Xiao wouldn't want her anyway, as it was the princess's talent he admired, causing Ningyun to blush and tell her to stop talking nonsense. The maid then grew serious, telling her mistress that in all honesty, the Li Xiao they met during the day was a rare find. She truly believed that the man possessed a soul that was 1 in 10,000, standing out from everyone else they had ever known. Tete urged her to seize the opportunity, reminding her of a line from the poetry books she was always reading about plucking flowers while they bloom. Ningyun smiled helplessly, reciting the full verse about not waiting until the branches are bare, a classic sentiment, to be sure. Suitsue laughed in agreement, and Ningyun nodded, deciding she would leave the matter of her marriage entirely in her father's hands. Later, as she lay in bed, she found herself tossing and turning, realizing that regardless of the outcome, she had to take the first step. She told herself that if she had misjudged him, she could simply ignore him after the wedding, and so, we moved to the following morning. Li Xiao woke up feeling refreshed, noting that the palace bedding was a world away from his humble cottage, just as his day was about to begin. As Li Xiao was moving about the courtyard, Zhu Gaoxiu strode over with a loud shout, asking if his brother Li Xiao was getting some exercise. He suggested they go move around together. Li Xiao greeted him with a smile, noting that exercising with the prince was a rare opportunity. He claimed it was exactly what he wanted. Deep down, Li Xiao knew Gaoxiu's future fate, yet in this moment, the prince seemed quite straightforward. Since Gaoxiu was close with the princess, Li Xiao knew he had to get along with him, and so, they headed to the training grounds for a few laps. Gaoxiu waved enthusiastically, and before long, we see the two of them arriving at the palace's small martial arts field to begin their run. Dripping with sweat, Gaoxiu noted with satisfaction that Li Xiao clearly didn't skip his daily training. Li Xiao modestly replied that the prince was overpraising him. He explained he was just a farm boy who gained some strength from daily chores, though he admitted he was still far behind the prince's level. Li Xiao laughed, and when Gaoxiu asked if he knew archery, he admitted with an embarrassed smile that while he could run, he was hopeless with a bow. Gaoxiu picked out a heavy 4-pelt bow for himself and tossed a lighter one to Li Xiao, offering to teach him, an offer Li Xiao couldn't refuse. To the southeast of the field sat the third floor of the Yangon Pavilion, where Zhang Suitsue noticed the commotion and pulled Ningyun to the window. Suitsue shouted in surprise, pointing out that Li Xiao's constitution must be excellent if he could keep up with Prince Gaoxiu for so many laps. Ningyun felt a surge of joy. Gaoxiu had a fierce temper and few friends, so seeing him get along with Li Xiao proved the young man's character. However, as she watched Li Xiao's clumsy, struggling attempts to pull the bowstring, Ningyun couldn't help but let out a comforted laugh. The distance created by his brilliant poetry from the day before vanished. A perfect man is intimidating, but a flawed one feels much closer. Suitsue muttered that she had expected Li Xiao to surprise them with martial arts skills as well, not realizing he was completely untrained. Ningyun glanced at her and teased that she should stop staring, reminding her that she had promised to serve her mistress forever just yesterday. She asked if Suitsue had no shame staring at a man like that. Suitsue joked she was just checking on the future groom before running off. Ningyun threatened to make her copy books as punishment. While back on the field, we find Li Xiao still practicing his archery. The web of his hand was starting to ache. Even a 60-pound bow was no easy feat for the uninitiated. To be honest, it was incredibly difficult. He accidentally let a curse slip under his breath before quickly apologizing, but Gaoxiu simply laughed it off, clearly not minding at all. Gaoxiu waved his hand dismissively, telling Li Xiao there was no need for formal talk between men, especially since he had been so bold. He appreciated that Li Xiao had the courage to speak his mind from the very first moment they met. He told him not to worry about his lack of skill and to take things slowly. He promised to take him hunting on the grasslands one day, real work for real men, before suddenly changing the subject to his true purpose. Gaoxiu suggested they go meet a certain great master, which naturally piqued Li Xiao's curiosity as they set off together. Gaoxiu laughed, explaining that this master was an expert at reading people and admitted that Li Xiao's marriage was essentially a done deal. He knew his sister well. Her saying she would follow their father's wishes meant she didn't reject the idea at all. Today was just a formality to check his birth charts, but this news made Li Xiao feel a sudden, sharp tension in his chest. Though he didn't believe in superstitions, history recorded that these ancient masters often possessed terrifyingly real abilities. One name flashed through his mind, Yao Guangxiao. He worried the black-robed monk might see through his identity as a traveler from another time, but he tried to stay calm as Gaoxiu led him along. Before long, they arrived at a quiet residence where a monk in black robes sat cross-legged before a go-board. We see the gravity of the moment. Gaoxiu bowed respectfully and introduced the man as Master Yao Guangxiao, the head of Qingshou Temple. To be honest, the atmosphere was quite heavy. Li Xiao offered a respectful greeting of his own. Yao Guangxiao looked up briefly and gestured toward the tea table. The master invited them to sit and began the intricate process of brewing tea. Once the fragrance filled the air, he served them both. Li Xiao took a small sip and immediately praised the tea, noting how the flavor bloomed on his tongue with a lingering sweetness. He remarked that while the tea was excellent, it was the master's precise brewing technique that truly brought out such a rich, pure aroma. He expressed deep admiration for the master's mastery of the way of tea, while Gao Shu simply added a brief comment about it smelling nice. Yao Guangxiao seemed slightly surprised, noting that he hadn't expected young Li Xiao to have such deep insights into tea culture. Li Xiao smiled, explaining he had simply learned a bit from a teacher back in his village who was a true tea enthusiast. The master's gaze then fell upon Li Xiao's hands. He smiled, noting that such thick, sturdy palms suggested a man destined for great future success. The master noted that since Li Xiao was 22 and still unmarried, his fortune was likely just beginning to bloom. Gao Shu leaned in to look at his hands as well. Gao Shu remarked that it truly seemed Li Xiao was destined to be part of the Zhu family. He then held out his own hand, asking the master to read his palm too. He wanted to know what his own hands revealed, but Yao Guangxiao simply smiled without answering directly, noting the weight of the royal bloodline. The master claimed he dared not speak lightly of such noble lineage. Gao Shu pulled his hand back, saying nothing more, while Yao Guangxiao kept his mysterious smile. With narrowed eyes, the master explained he had learned the art of bone reading from a great sage and asked Li Xiao to stretch out his hand. He offered to read Li Xiao's skeletal structure to determine his fate. Deep down, Li Xiao suspected this was actually a secret test ordered by Prince Zhu. Li Xiao nodded, politely accepting the master's offer. He rolled up his sleeve and extended his arm, allowing Yao Guangxiao to take hold of it. The master began feeling the bones of the wrist, moving slowly down to the palm and each individual finger. To be honest, the focus was quite intense. With his eyes closed, the master's head swayed slightly as he continued the examination for nearly 15 minutes. His face remained perfectly calm throughout. However, beneath that calm exterior, a storm was brewing in the master's heart. He had just discovered a result that was, frankly, quite unbelievable. He realized that in the years to come, this young man possessed the destiny of half an emperor. He thought quickly, ruling out the idea of Li Xiao seizing the throne. The only logical explanation was that this man would one day share the world with a ruler, becoming a powerful king of a different surname. And the only one capable of seizing the world was Prince Zhu. Yao Guangxiao suppressed a surge of wild joy. This was the opportunity he had sought his whole life. In his excitement, the master unconsciously tightened his grip. Li Xiao, feeling the pressure, awkwardly called out that the master's strength was a bit much. Yao Guangxiao snapped back to reality and quickly withdrew his hand. He pressed his palms together in a respectful gesture, apologizing for his lapse in composure. He admitted he had momentarily lost himself in the reading. He proclaimed that Li Xiao's fortune stretched for 10,000 miles. It was the first time he had ever seen a destiny as massive and unshakable as a mountain. He added that such a powerful fortune would bring immense luck to everyone around him. He laughed heartily, repeating the word good 3 times over. Gao Shu was momentarily stunned before he grabbed Li Xiao's hand in delight, already calling him his future brother-in-law with great enthusiasm. He joked that they were clearly meant to be one family, claiming he liked Li Xiao from the start. Li Xiao could only offer an awkward, uncertain smile. Prince Gao Shu immediately cut him off, insisting that calling him prince was far too formal for a future brother-in-law, especially since Li Xiao was the elder. He insisted on being called simply Gao Shu before giving Master Yao Guangxiao a respectful bow and taking his leave. After that, he hurriedly pulled Li Xiao away and brought him back to a residence, telling him to stay there while he went to share the good news. He sternly ordered the servants to provide the best hospitality and then vanished in a flash, leaving Li Xiao quite bewildered by the sudden turn of events. The change in attitude was so massive that Li Xiao could hardly process it, but it seemed the matter was finally settled. Meanwhile, we returned to Prince Zhu. Zhu slowly emerged from the back hall and asked the master if everything he had said was truly the case. Yao Guangxiao pressed his palms together. The master firmly stated that a monk does not tell lies, claiming Li Xiao's fortune was as unshakable as a mountain and that the prince had chosen well. He assured him that this man would bring immense luck to the House of Yan. Upon hearing this, Zhu burst into a hearty laugh. He praised Gao Shu as a truly fine son for finding such a man, then asked the master how Li Xiao would treat his daughter, Princess Lingyun. Yao Guangxiao spoke the truth, predicting they would support each other until their hair turned white with age. Zhu was absolutely delighted. The prince then asked the master to select an auspicious date for the wedding to be announced to the world. Elsewhere, Gao Shu had already rushed into the main palace. He shouted for his father, but inside he found the princess consort, Su Miaoyun, and the heir apparent, Zhu Gaoqi, deep in conversation. Miaoyun looked over in surprise, wondering why he was in such a rush since his father had been out since early morning. Gao Shu replied, it was wonderful news. With his chest puffed out, Gao Shu declared that their family had truly found a dragon and that the entire house of Yan was about to be blessed with great fortune. Miaoyun stood up in pleasant surprise, asking what he meant. Gao Shu excitedly asked if they knew just how highly the master had praised Li Xiao. He explained that Li Xiao possessed a destiny stretching 10,000 miles, a fortune as massive as a mountain itself. He added that this luck was so thick it would overflow onto everyone around him and the entire household. The room fell into a sudden, stunned silence. Overjoyed beyond measure, Miaoyun closed her eyes in prayer for a long moment before looking at Gao Shu with a relieved and proud smile. She told Gao Xiu that by looking out for his sister Ling Yun and vetting her suitor so well, he had truly performed a great service this time. Gao Xiu laughed, telling his sister her marriage was now a certainty and that their father was likely already picking out the perfect wedding date. Gao Xiu laughed heartily, telling his sister that he had truly picked out a wonderful husband for her this time, and asked how she planned to show her gratitude. She teased him, suggesting she might reward him with a set of books to study since he spent far too much time fooling around without any discipline. Gao Xiu begged for mercy at the thought of books before turning serious, repeating Master Yao Guanxiao's high praise for Li Xiao once again. As she listened, Princess Ling Yun's eyes widened in surprise that the master would give such a glowing evaluation. Gao Xiu asked if he hadn't done a brilliant job. Ling Yun felt a bit shy and asked if their father had truly agreed. Gao Xiu laughed, asking if there was even a need to wonder about that. He assured her the marriage was a certainty and told her to simply wait for the wedding. Ling Yun realized that this news would soon cause a stir in the manor. Deep down, she felt a mix of nervous anticipation and shyness. She wondered if marrying him would truly bring such good fortune to her family. She told herself that if it was heaven's will and could help her household, she would follow her family's arrangements. To be honest, she was already quite curious. Ling Yun gave a small nod of agreement, and Gao Xiu, delighted that the matter was settled, clapped his hands and vanished as quickly as a puff of smoke. Watching her brother's retreating figure, Ling Yun shook her head with a smile. She walked to the window, looking at the pairs of mandarin ducks on the sunlit lake. Her mind drifted back to the man she had met the day before, wondering if he would treat her well. Meanwhile, the master's reading had changed everything for Li Xiao. While Gao Xiu and the others were now treating him with immense hospitality, Li Xiao remained firm in his heart that he would not simply be a puppet. He knew that for now, the most important thing was to handle the immediate matters at hand. And so, a little later, we find him at the princess's door. He arrived asking to see the princess with a friendly expression. The maid, Zhang Tsuitsue, poked her head out and whispered that the wedding hadn't happened yet. She reminded him that the couple shouldn't meet before the ceremony, but Li Xiao insisted he was there to ask for a sincere favor. He explained that he had been studying the Analects, but had hit a wall, and the only person he could think to ask for guidance was the princess herself. Tsuitsue thought it over and told him to wait while she informed her mistress. She closed the door and went upstairs, where Ling Yun was busy writing. The maid giggled, announcing that her future husband, Master Li Xiao, was outside. Ling Yun's face turned red instantly at the mention of him. She scolded Tsuitsue, saying they couldn't possibly meet before the wedding and told her to send him away. But the maid explained his scholarly dilemma. She told her mistress that he was seeking her help with a difficult text. Ling Yun felt a small spark of joy, wondering if he truly admired her talent. Ling Yun insisted that it simply wouldn't do, asking the maid to send him away and suggesting that guidance could wait until after the wedding. Zhang Tsuitsue had no choice but to head back downstairs. The maid delivered the message, explaining that the princess felt it was inappropriate to meet before the ceremony and that he should return later. Li Xiao, however, wasn't ready to give up just yet. He leaned in, asking quietly how the princess had reacted and promising it would be their little secret. With a smile, he discreetly handed over 2 small gold beans, which he quickly accepted. After tucking the gold into her pocket, she whispered that she could tell the princess was actually quite happy. However, the rules about not meeting before the wedding were firm, and her mistress couldn't easily break them. Li Xiao realized that she didn't actually dislike him, and he knew that persistence was key when pursuing a lady. To be honest, he was prepared to be quite stubborn about it. He looked at Tsuitsue and told her to inform the princess that if she refused to see him, he would simply wait right there until she finally changed her mind. Yes, right there in front of everyone. Tsuitsue was taken aback by his boldness, though she couldn't help but feel a flicker of envy at such devotion. She sighed, closed the door, and headed back upstairs once more. She told her mistress that Master Li Xiao had declared he would wait downstairs indefinitely unless she agreed to help him with his studies. It was a bold move, to say the least. Ling Yun complained that he was acting like a complete rogue, just like her brother Gao Xiu. And yet, for some reason, she felt a strange mix of happiness and inner turmoil. Tsuitsue, now firmly on his side, remarked that such sincerity was a rare and precious thing in a man. She had started putting in a good word for him without even realizing it. Ling Yun teased her for talking too much, but when asked if she would see him, she stubbornly told the maid to let him wait. And so, from sunrise to sunset, we see him standing there. He remained fixed outside the Yangon pavilion with a singular focus. Meanwhile, over at the Prince of Yan's manor, Zhu Di was listening to the latest reports while having dinner. The prince was curious, having heard that this young man, Li Xiao, had been waiting at the door for an entire day. Gao Xiu nodded, confirming that he had known about it since that morning. Gao Xiu admitted he hadn't expected his sister to be so stubborn, nor did he expect Li Xiao to actually stay the whole day. Zhu Di couldn't help but let out a knowing smile. He remarked that the boy seemed to be quite the romantic, which actually put his mind at ease. Still, he noted that Ling Yun was being quite cold by not even inviting him in for a seat. Sitting beside him, Su Miaoyun defended her daughter, noting that it was only proper for the couple to remain apart until the wedding. After saying this, she paused and looked at her husband. She gave him a pointed look, and Zhu Di quickly tried to laugh it off and focus on his food. But Gao Xiu, ever the one to bring up awkward topics, just had to speak up. He pointed out that meeting before the wedding wasn't so bad, reminding them that his father had met his mother before their ceremony, and that they had nearly come to blows. The dinner table fell into a sudden, heavy silence, broken only by the sound of Gao Shu happily stuffing his face. He noted that the chicken leg was particularly delicious today. He looked up, wondering why everyone had stopped eating, and encouraged them to join in before burying his face back into his meal. Some people, it seems, are blissfully unaware of the atmosphere. Suddenly, the quiet was broken as Su Miaoyun began to cough quite violently. Zhu Di immediately rushed to her side, gently patting her back. He asked with genuine concern if she was feeling unwell again, muttering that the local doctors were useless, and he'd have to request a royal physician from the capital. He asked if she could still finish her meal, but Miaoyun simply gave him a sharp look, stood up, and announced she was full. Zhu Di quickly followed her. As he left to accompany his wife, Gao Shu called out, asking if his sister could finally see Li Xiao. Zhu Di glared back, asking if he was truly that dense. After his father left, Gao Shu had a sudden realization. If his father had met his mother before their wedding, then surely it was allowed. With that thought, he dropped his chopsticks and ran toward the Yangon pavilion. His younger brother, Gao Sui, scrambled to follow him like a loyal shadow. In the blink of an eye, the family had scattered. Gao Shu looked at the abandoned table, realizing that the entire feast was now his alone. Lady Zhang rolled her eyes at him, snapping that all he ever thought about was eating. Gao Shu just chuckled, completely unfazed by her sharp tongue. He remarked that good food should never be wasted, while meanwhile, back at the Yangon pavilion, Li Xiao was still standing his ground. Suitsue peered downstairs, noting that Li Xiao hadn't eaten or drunk a drop all day. She warned her mistress that he might actually collapse at this rate. Lingyun felt a mix of secret joy and growing guilt. She asked if it was true. Had he really stayed there the entire day without moving? Tetsue nodded, confirming she had been watching him. He hadn't gone anywhere, choosing instead to wait right there in the open. Realizing he must be starving, Lingyun finally relented. She urgently told the maid to go bring him inside before he fainted from hunger. She instructed Suetsue to prepare a hot bowl of noodles for him. Tetsue was delighted, but just then, a booming voice shattered the silence. It was Gao Shu, shouting at the top of his lungs for his sister to see Li Xiao because the poor man was starving. A subtle approach, it was not. Then, like a high-pitched echo, another voice joined in, repeating the exact same plea. It seemed the brothers had arrived in force. Gao Shu yelled again, claiming that their father, the prince, had officially given his permission for them to meet. Gao Sui repeated the claim once more. Between the two of them, their shouting was likely loud enough for the entire manor to hear. Suetsue froze in shock, whispering to her mistress to ask if they should still let him in. Lingyun, feeling utterly embarrassed, told her to wait. She decided it was best to hold off for a moment. And so, as darkness fell, Li Xiao remained outside, learning just how complicated a woman's heart can be. Li Xiao had hoped her heart would soften, but things took an unexpected turn. With the brothers shouting like that, the whole manor heard, and the princess was far too shy for this. How could she possibly show her face now? Li Xiao could only offer a bitter smile, thinking that while he appreciated Gao Shu and Gao Sui's help, he really just needed to be left alone. He suggested they go back and rest while he waited in silence, but Gao Shu patted his chest, insisting they share both the blessings and the hardships together. If their sister wouldn't come out, he vowed to stay, and little Gao Sui followed suit, patting his own chest and wiping his nose while repeating the exact same sentiment. It was enough to make anyone break into a cold sweat. The brothers were certainly loyal, but their timing, to be perfectly honest, was absolutely terrible. Li Xiao pulled Gao Shu aside and whispered that his sister would be far too embarrassed to come out as long as they were standing there watching. Gao Shu took a moment to consider this and realized it made sense, so he grabbed Gao Sui and decided it was finally time for them to make their exit. Gao Sui echoed the plan, and at long last, the two of them departed. Li Xiao breathed a sigh of relief as he looked back at the tightly shut doors of the Yangon pavilion. He wondered if he should keep waiting or just head home, as the hunger was becoming truly unbearable. Another hour passed, and the sky turned completely dark. He told himself a first meeting shouldn't happen late at night anyway, and just as he felt the sting of disappointment and prepared to leave, something changed. The door creaked open, and Zhang Tsuitsue appeared, carrying a steaming bowl of noodles and urging him to eat before he completely collapsed from hunger. He hurriedly asked if the princess was finally willing to see him, but Tsuitsue only gave a playful giggle, telling him she'd only reveal that once he finished the meal. He took the bowl and finished it in a few frantic bites. He was truly starving, after all, while Tsuitsue watched with a smile, asking if it tasted good. He drank every last drop of the soup and wiped the oil from his lips, declaring it delicious. It was then that Tsuitsue revealed the princess had cooked it herself. No wonder it tasted so heavenly. Upon hearing this, he made sure to savor even the very last noodle. Tsuitsue then took the empty bowl back from him. She delivered the message that since it was late, he should return tomorrow, before heading back inside and closing the door. But for Li Xiao, there was clearly hope now. He felt a surge of secret joy, wondering what it meant for a woman of her high status to personally cook a meal for a man. It seemed his persistence had paid off. Satisfied with how the day had ended, he gave the Yangon pavilion one last look before finally turning around to head home. Up on the third floor, Princess Lingyun asked if he had finally gone. So he pulled her head back from the window, confirming that he was indeed leaving. She noted that he looked back with quite a lingering, reluctant gaze. Lingyun felt a slight flush of embarrassment as she reached out to take Tsue's hand. We returned to the manor that night, where Zhu Ningyun, having bathed in flower petals, lay tucked in her blankets, asking Tsue what she should wear for the meeting. She stared at the ceiling in a daze, and at the mere thought of tomorrow's encounter, she felt a wave of nerves that made sleep impossible. She tried to reason with herself, remembering she was a princess of the great Ming dynasty while he was just a commoner. Surely, he should be the nervous one. She told herself he was likely the one tossing and turning while she would sleep soundly. Yet the next morning arrived with Li Xiao already waiting at the pavilion. He knocked on the door again, and after a cheerful greeting from the staff, he waited with a heart that was suddenly fluttering at the thought of seeing his future wife. After waiting about 15 minutes, he caught sight of a graceful figure descending the stairs with a steady, elegant pace. It was indeed the princess, Zhu Ningyun, dressed in a flowing gown of misty blue that seemed to shimmer as she moved. The fabric was intricately embroidered with cherry blossoms, making her look refined yet approachable, even as a white silk veil hidden beneath her hat obscured her face. Even without seeing her features, her classical beauty was evident in her posture, leaving Li Xiao completely dazed, which, to be honest, was a perfectly natural reaction. Suddenly, the voice of his system, Yuer, rang in his ears, identifying the lady as 18-year-old Zhu Ningyun, the eldest daughter of the Prince of Yan. The system noted her status multiplier was 50 times and asked if he wished to bind with her, warning that this choice would be permanent. He didn't hesitate to bind, and the sweet love system officially activated with Zhu Ningyun as his one and only permanent partner. With the multiplier set, a massive newbie gift pack was bestowed upon him, granting a 3-point increase to all of his personal attributes. He also received nearly 1,000,000 gold pieces and a permanent beauty in the eye of the beholder buff for the couple. This meant his partner would always appear in her prime to him, and with the rewards distributed, the system wished them a lifetime of happiness. The rewards were incredibly generous, especially that final buff, and at that very moment, a warm current began to flow through his entire body. He felt his physical strength, agility, and mental clarity sharpened significantly just as the princess finally spoke to him. Her voice was crisp and melodious as she asked if he truly had some difficulties with his studies that required her personal assistance. Snapping out of his trance, Li Xiao quickly apologized for his earlier rudeness, struck by her ethereal presence during this first official meeting. He bowed slightly before looking at her with deep affection, his heart already racing at the thought of the woman who would walk beside him for the rest of his life. Sincerity is often the shortest path to the heart, and so Zhu Ningyun gently asked which specific text was troubling Li Xiao, modestly adding that her own knowledge was quite limited. She insisted she might not be able to offer much guidance, but Li Xiao quickly bowed, explaining that as a simple farmer, his access to books was nothing compared to a princess. He told her that even a small bit of her insight would be a massive honor and a great help to his studies, which, to be honest, was a very smooth way to start a conversation. Since his books were back at his quarters, he asked if she would mind walking there with him, and Zhu Ningyun softly agreed, asking him to lead the way. As they walked, Li Xiao looked for light topics to discuss, chatting about the weather and the manor's scenery to ease the tension between them. He was acutely aware that this was the daughter of the Prince of Yan, and he wanted to do everything possible to close the distance between their worlds. Beyond her peerless grace and traditional upbringing, he could sense that Zhu Ningyun was a truly kind-hearted soul, and he vowed never to let her down. While the rest of the world believed her beauty was lost, he possessed a unique gift that allowed him to see her true, radiant self forever. It seems his efforts were working, as a notification appeared showing that Zhu Ningyun's affection for him had increased by 28 points, reaching a total of 58. Their harmonious chat earned him 10 sweet love points, which, thanks to his 50 times multiplier, instantly ballooned into 500 points. He realized that even casual conversation was rewarding, and seeing her affection rise so high made him feel that he was definitely on the right track. The power of that multiplier was truly terrifying, and with a satisfied heart, he finally led Zhu Ningyun to his personal living quarters. He suggested they head into the study where his books were kept, and after she nodded in agreement, they stepped inside the quiet room together. He pulled out a copy of the Analects, putting on a look of deep confusion as he claimed the text was far too difficult for him to understand without her help. He quickly brought over 2 chairs, inviting her to sit, and as she gracefully took her place, he took the opportunity to sit right beside her. Her maid, Tsue, proved to be incredibly perceptive. She announced she would wait outside and promptly slipped away to give them some privacy. She even closed the door behind her, earning a silent thumbs up from Li Xiao, though being alone in the room made Zhu Ningyun feel a bit nervous again. To break the ice, he quickly opened the Analects and pointed to a specific passage, repeating that he found this particular section quite baffling. Zhu Ningyun leaned in to look, noting it was the Shui Air chapter, and she began to explain the text to him with the utmost seriousness. She told him that the meaning of the opening line was that reviewing what one has learned is a source of great pleasure, a sentiment he likely shared for different reasons. As she explained that having friends visit from afar is a joy, Li Xiao pretended to listen intently, though his mind was actually wandering elsewhere. We see his gaze drift to Zhu Ningyun's hands. Her skin appeared as delicate as fine jade, her fingers slender and graceful, a sight of pure elegance. It's worth noting that thanks to his unique buff, every part of Zhu Ningyun appeared to his senses in its most youthful and radiant state. He was already beginning to look forward to seeing the face hidden beneath that white veil, when suddenly, Zhu Ningyun spoke his name. Realizing he was staring at her hands, she hurriedly pulled them back, while he quickly shifted his gaze to the book as if nothing had happened. He acted as though he hadn't noticed her hands at all. Though he longed to tell her he didn't care about her scars, he knew the time wasn't right. He quickly changed the subject with a warm smile, telling the princess how grateful he was and how much he had learned from her explanation. He patted his chest and acted relieved, claiming he had almost completely misunderstood the text, which, naturally, piqued Zhu Ningyun's curiosity. When she asked what his interpretation had been, he gave an embarrassed laugh and pointed to a line about a gentleman's dignity. He admitted that he initially thought Confucius was saying a gentleman shouldn't hit someone too hard, or they wouldn't feel the power of his prestige. This absurd interpretation caused her to burst into a crisp, melodic laughter that she couldn't seem to stop, telling him he had it all wrong. Amused, she asked how he interpreted the line about not traveling far while parents are alive. He replied that it meant you can't run far. He joked that even if you did run, your parents would have a method to catch you and bring you back, which she found absolutely hilarious. He then claimed that the line about strange forces meant Confucius would use supernatural strength to beat someone into a state of confusion. As laughter continued to echo from the room, the maid, Tisue, stood outside with reddened eyes, deeply moved by the sound. It had been over 3 years since she had heard the princess laugh so happily. Just then, Zhu Gaoxiu arrived and was told to be quiet. Zhu Gaoxiu tiptoed toward the door to eavesdrop and immediately heard the unmistakable sound of his sister, Zhu Ningyun, laughing uncontrollably. She was gasping for air between laughs, saying how funny it all was, and as he listened, Zhu Gaoxiu's eyes widened in complete disbelief. His own eyes began to well up with tears of joy as he realized his sister was finally happy again, whispering to himself that it was wonderful. Not wanting to disturb their moment, Zhu Gaoxiu quietly slipped away, his tears flowing even more freely once he was clear of the house. He simply couldn't hold it back anymore, weeping openly as he walked. After all, even the toughest men have their breaking points. Just then, Prince Yan, Zhu Di, was heading toward the courtyard. As he stepped out, he happened to run right into Zhu Gaoxiu, who was busy wiping away tears. Looking up, Zhu Gaoxiu was startled to find himself face to face with his own father. He quickly composed himself and bowed, insisting that he wasn't actually crying. He was simply so happy that his tears had a mind of their own. Zhu Di, naturally, was quite confused by this. The prince asked what could possibly cause such a display of joy. After taking a moment to calm his emotions, Zhu Gaoxiu explained that his elder sister was finally laughing, and laughing quite happily. He admitted that as her younger brother, he couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Upon hearing this, Zhu Di's expression shifted instantly, a look of pure delight spreading across his face as he realized Ningyun was happy. Relieved, he asked for more details. Zhu Gaoxiu explained that his sister had met with Li Xiao in the study, where the two of them were supposedly discussing literature and scholarship. He noted that whatever Li Xiao had said must have been incredibly clever, as it had his sister laughing without pause. Zhu Di let out a hearty laugh of his own, clearly thrilled by the news. The prince declared that while he had urgent business to attend to outside the manor, Zhu Gaoxiu should go immediately to tell his mother the news so she could share in the joy. Zhu Gaoxiu bowed in obedience, and as Zhu Di turned to leave, we see that even the great prince's eyes were beginning to redden with a father's quiet emotion. Back in the study, Zhu Ningyun was starting to feel a bit tired from all the laughter. She looked at Li Xiao and suggested that he was likely making these things up just to please her. Naturally, he wasn't about to admit to that. With a smile, he told the princess she was mistaken and insisted he truly believed his own interpretations. Then he asked if Confucius was really over 6 feet tall. Zhu Ningyun gestured with her hand, confirming that the legends did indeed describe him as a man of imposing height. Li Xiao then moved on to his next point of logic. He asked if it was also true that Confucius had 3,000 disciples. Zhu Ningyun nodded, a bit puzzled, confirming that he had 3,000 followers, including 72 renowned sages. Li Xiao laughed and claimed that proved his point. A man of that height with 3,000 followers was clearly a force to be reckoned with. It was a rather unique perspective, to say the least. He pointed out that when Confucius was present, it was an era of etiquette, but without him, it became an era of warring states. He joked that the man must have been a master of both words and fists. He explained that this was why he interpreted the text through a lens of physical strength. When he put it that way, it almost sounded reasonable, in a very absurd sort of way. This caused Zhu Ningyun to burst into laughter once again, admitting that his strange logic actually seemed to make a bit of sense. And who could argue with that? Li Xiao nodded, acting relieved and claiming that he was lucky the princess was there to guide his wandering mind back to the correct path. Zhu Ningyun offered him a gentle, genuine smile. At that moment, a notification appeared. Zhu Ningyun's favorability had increased by 1, bringing their current total to 59. It seems his humor was working quite well. The system noted that because they had completed a humorous conversation that left both parties delighted, he had earned 20 sweet points, which then triggered a massive 50-fold critical multiplier. That brought his total to 1,000 points, with 1,500 sweet points in the bank. Li Xiao was absolutely thrilled. His points were rising faster than he could have imagined. However, Zhu Ningyun looked at him with a touch of worry, warning him that he shouldn't say such things outside. If those strict Confucian scholars heard him, they would accuse him of great disrespect toward the sage, and who knows what kind of chaos that would cause. Li Xiao quickly nodded, assuring her he only dared to let her guide him. He added that given their close relationship, she wouldn't let him fall into such trouble, right? It was a bold bit of flirting, and it certainly didn't go unnoticed. Zhu Ningyun was overcome with shyness, giving a soft reply while feeling quite embarrassed. She quickly stood up, suggesting that perhaps they should end their session for today. Li Xiao rose to see the princess off, but as he glanced at the sky, he casually remarked that it was already noon. By the time she returned home and prepared a meal, it would be late. He mentioned he had just researched a new dish a few days ago and asked if she might stay to critique it so he could make adjustments. To be honest, he was being quite clever. You see, conversation is an art. If he had simply asked her to stay for lunch, her sense of propriety would have forced her to refuse. But a critique was a different matter. Zhu Ningyun looked at him with genuine curiosity, asking if Li Xiao actually knew how to cook. In those days, after all, it was quite rare for a gentleman to enter the kitchen. Li Xiao put on a slightly sympathetic expression, explaining that a year ago, after his parents passed away, he was the only male left in the house. He simply had no other choice. Zhu Ningyun, being a kind-hearted soul, felt for him immediately. Sensing the moment, Zhang Cuizue stepped in with a perfectly timed assist to help her mistress decide. She noted that it would indeed take a long time to cook once they got back, so they might as well stay and taste the young master's cooking. It was a very practical suggestion. Zhu Ningyun finally nodded in agreement. After all, the noodles from the day before had been delicious, and she had been looking for a way to repay his kindness anyway. Li Xiao told them to wait just a moment and headed for the kitchen. Immediately, a notification appeared. Zhu Ningyun's favorability had increased by 5, reaching a total of 64. A score of 64 suggested that the princess was starting to feel a slight spark of genuine affection for him, which, naturally, was exactly what he was hoping for. He recalled that reaching a favorability of 99 would grant him a massive gift pack. As he walked, he pulled up the system mall to see what was available today. The mall had refreshed with new items, a 500-gram bag of snowflake white salt for 100 points, and a 200-gram bag of MSG for 200 points. There was also a small attribute gift pack for 1,000 points. It was as if the system knew exactly what he needed. Without a second thought, he decided to clear the shelves. He spent 1,300 of his 1,500 points in an instant, and the purchased goods were immediately transferred into his system warehouse for safekeeping. He chose to use the attribute gift pack first. It was a success, granting him a point of strength as a warm current began to flow through his body. Starting from his core, a warmth flowed through his limbs for 10 seconds. He realized his physical attributes now surpassed those of an ordinary person, largely because the beginner's gift pack had granted him a 3-point boost to all stats. With this comprehensive upgrade, Li Xiao could feel a significant difference compared to before. He felt full of energy, and his mind was reacting much faster. These small attribute packs were clearly a treasure. He decided he would buy them whenever they appeared. In ancient times, having a strong physique was the only way to stay calm in a crisis. Soon, we see him arrive at the kitchen. Before leaving this morning, he had already instructed the servants to prepare the ingredients. Now, it was time for Zhu Ningyun to taste his skills. He suspected a single spoonful of white salt and a dash of MSG would be enough to outshine most chefs in the Ming Dynasty. And so, the moment to showcase his culinary talents began with a flurry of activity. He started by sautéing garlic to release its aroma before adding the main ingredients. In one go, he prepared 4 home-style dishes, including stir-fried pork with carrots, steamed sea bass, and stir-fried eggs with chives. Finally, there was a pot of chicken soup. This 3-dish 1-soup meal had been simmering for a while. At the last moment, he sprinkled in the salt and MSG. Apologizing for the wait, he hurriedly had the servants bring the food to the table while he personally served the princess a bowl of white rice. The aroma was incredible, and Zhu Ningyun was visibly surprised that he had actually cooked this himself. He encouraged her to start before the food got cold. The princess nodded, though even while eating, she didn't remove her white silk-veiled hat. Zhu Ningyun picked up her chopsticks and first tried a piece of the steamed sea bass. It practically melted in her mouth, tasting fresh and absolutely delicious. Deep down, she was utterly astonished that he could produce such a gourmet meal. Since it was considered improper to speak while eating in those days, Li Xiao simply accompanied her in silence. It was clear that Zhu Ningyun was thoroughly enjoying the meal, as she continued to eat without stopping. However, she still maintained her ladylike poise. Feeling a bit self-conscious about eating alone, she looked toward Zhang Tsuetsue and suggested that she must be hungry as well, inviting her to sit and join them. Zhang Tsuetsue slowly sat down, and the three of them shared the meal together. The food was simply too good. After a few bites, Zhang Tsuetsue couldn't help but praise the cooking, even with her mouth still full of food. Li Xiao modestly replied that she was overpraising him. By the time they finished, every single dish had been cleared away. Zhu Ningyun then thanked him for his hospitality and rose to take her leave. Li Xiao quickly stood up to see her off, as any polite host would do. He told himself that for a first date, this was a good stopping point. He bid her a safe journey, adding that if he encountered more things he didn't understand, he would surely seek her guidance again. Zhu Ningyun gave a slight nod, then turned and began to depart, with Li Xiao escorting her all the way to the gate. Only then did he stop and watch her figure disappear into the distance before returning inside. As she walked, hidden beneath the white silk of her hat, Zhu Ningyun's face wore a constant, gentle smile. Their time together had been remarkably pleasant and relaxed, free from the usual heavy pressures of her station. It seemed Li Xiao possessed a certain magic that allowed others to let down their guard and forget their troubles. Moreover, she found him genuinely interesting, a rare soul, indeed. The fact that he could cook such exquisite meals was simply the icing on the cake. If she could eat his cooking every day, life would be truly wonderful. Princess, princess, we've arrived, Zhang Tsuetsue called out several times before, finally snapping Zhu Ningyun out of her deep reverie. My dear princess, you two have only been apart for a moment, and you're already pining for him? Zhang Tsuetsue teased with a laugh. Oh, so you're mocking me now? Zhu Ningyun replied, feigning annoyance. How could you leave me all alone in that study? I simply didn't want to be the third wheel. Titsue giggled. I was only trying to create an opportunity for my princess. You. Overcome with embarrassment, Zhu Ningyun raised a hand as if to strike her playfully. You're making fun of me, Tsuetsue. The maid laughed and quickly ran into the house to escape. It seems Tsuetsue understands the situation perfectly. Meanwhile, for personally preparing and serving a delicious meal to his beloved, Li Xiao earned 20 sweetness points. This triggered a 50-fold critical hit, granting him a staggering 1,000 additional points. Back in his room, he reviewed the notification and realized his total had reached 1,200. To be honest, this was almost too easy. He felt incredibly lucky that he hadn't rushed into a random binding earlier, or this golden opportunity would have been completely wasted. He felt a surge of relief, but a new problem was already looming. At the moment, he was essentially penniless and owned absolutely nothing. How he would manage to marry a princess while being this broke was a major concern. After all, whether in ancient times or the modern future, a groom is expected to provide a dowry and a home. He certainly couldn't live in the Prince of Yan's palace after the wedding. Marrying into her family with nothing would make him a live-in son-in-law, meaning any future children would have to take the surname Zhu. That was something he simply couldn't accept. He was a man of pride, and the thought of such an arrangement weighed heavily on his mind. He realized that if he wanted to make real money, he'd need at least enough to secure a proper estate in Beiping. Reaching into his clothes, he opened his hand to find a palmful of gold beans, the ones Zhu Gaoxiu had insisted on pressing into his palm earlier. Judging by the weight, there were about 8 taels. Now, with the current exchange rate of gold to silver being 1:5, he essentially had 40 taels of silver as his starting capital. To be honest, 40 taels of silver was no small sum. After all, a single tael could buy over 300 pounds of rice. In Beiping, a modest courtyard house could be bought for 50 or 60 taels. It was time to make that money grow. Relying on his knowledge as a traveler from another time, he planned to find a way to multiply these gold beans several times over. This was, after all, the eldest daughter of the Prince of Yan's estate. He couldn't exactly take her away empty-handed. He felt he had to present Zhu Di with a truly substantial gift. With that thought, he tucked the gold beans securely into his pocket and headed out of the estate to look around for business opportunities. In ancient times, marriage was a massive undertaking with incredibly tedious procedures, especially for a royal household. However, his situation was unique. Having no parents meant many of those steps could be skipped, and yet, a daughter of royalty couldn't exactly live in a broken shack. Meanwhile, the princess consort, Su Mianyun, was discussing this very matter with Zhu Di, suggesting that perhaps Li Xiao should marry into their family as a live-in son-in-law. That simply won't do, Zhu Di replied, shaking his head. I am looking for a son-in-law, not a servant who takes our name. That would be somewhat insulting to the young man. I can see that Li Xiao truly cares for our daughter, and if we cause him to feel resentment, it won't be good for her. Zhu Di frowned slightly, taking a sip of his tea, fearing they might lose sight of what mattered. How about this? I will grant him gold, silver, and a fine residence. Our estate will handle the wedding arrangements so our daughter doesn't suffer. That is not ideal, Su Miaoyun countered. And why not? Zhu Di asked. Lately, I've seen how truly happy Ningyun is, she analyzed. She is genuinely devoted to Li Xiao. She believes he loves her for her talents. That much is common knowledge among us. If you simply hand him money, will he accept it? And if he does, will our daughter begin to think that Li Xiao only came to her for the wealth? She might grow to despise him, but if he refuses the money, he might feel we are merely offering charity, creating a rift between him and our family. Hearing this, Zhu Di agreed completely. My queen, you are absolutely right. He realized he had been short-sighted and looked at Su Miaoyun with a smile, sensing she already had a clever plan. She smiled back. Let the estate handle the wedding and the engagement first. No matter how small a dowry Li Xiao offers, even if it is just a single copper coin, we will simply provide a much larger dowry in return. It's a perfect solution, Zhu Di exclaimed, calling his princess consort his most capable advisor. Delighted, Zhu Di opened his ledgers and began calculating his assets. After reviewing his holdings for a while, he looked towards Su Miaoyun and spoke. My dear, our eldest daughter is the apple of our eye. Let's give her the Luyun Villa and its 2,000 acres of farmland as part of her dowry. Upon hearing this, Su Miaoyun nodded with a smile, agreeing it should go to Ningyun. Zhu Di then suggested adding a grand forecourtyard mansion and 1,000 pieces of gold. Su Miaoyun agreed, though she noted that no matter how much gold they gave, it could eventually run dry. You're right to think ahead, Zhu Di mused. Given the unique circumstances, he decided to ask the emperor to grant his son-in-law, Li Xiao, a noble title. He also planned to find him a proper official post. Su Miaoyun beamed, noting that nothing could be better. Then it's settled, Zhu Di said, striking the table. He decided to visit the Grand Master the next day to find an auspicious date and finalize the wedding as soon as possible. Only then would his heart be at ease. A day later, we see Zhu Di visiting Qingshou Temple to consult Yao Guangxiao, where he secured a lucky date. The 24th day of the first lunar month, just half a month away, was chosen for the engagement. Back at the estate, Zhu Di gave the news to Zhu Gaoxiu. He instructed him to pass the word to Li Xiao. Without a moment's delay, Zhu Gaoxiu hurried to find him. Li Xiao calculated the time. Half a month was not long at all. Yes, my father wanted me to let you know, Zhu Gaoxiu said with a grin. Li Xiao nodded, thinking of the betrothal gifts. Custom dictated these gifts be carried in wooden chests to the bride's home for all to see. With many noble guests attending, appearing poor would be shameful. He certainly couldn't go empty-handed. Seeing Li Xiao's uncertain expression, Zhu Gaoxiu guessed what he was brooding over. Leaning in, Zhu Gaoxiu whispered, future brother-in-law, let me give you a hint. My father is preparing a villa and a mansion as return gifts. Li Xiao was genuinely surprised that Zhu Di held him in such high regard. To be honest, he felt a warm surge of gratitude in his heart. Respect is a two-way street. After all, since the prince was offering such heavy gifts, Li Xiao couldn't just bring a single copper coin. He made a decision. Looking at Zhu Gaoxiu, he smiled. Gaoxiu, I want to partner with you on a business venture. Are you interested? What kind of big business? Zhu Gaoxiu asked, his curiosity piqued. Li Xiao remained silent for a moment, glanced around, and then whispered mysteriously, a massive business. One so large it could make the entire Prince of Yan's estate incredibly wealthy. Hearing this, Zhu Gaoxiu sucked in a breath of cold air. The idea of making the entire Prince of Yan's estate wealthy sent Zhu Gaoxiu into a state of pure excitement. Future brother-in-law, what kind of business is this? He asked, as Li Xiao leaned in mysteriously. For now, Li Xiao kept it a secret. He calculated that if this venture succeeded, it would be too massive for him to handle alone. Only the Prince of Yan had the power to control such an industry. He decided to go with the flow and offer this business to his future father-in-law as a betrothal gift. Brother-in-law, just tell me, Zhu Gaoxiu urged. Is there anything I can do to help? In a low voice, Li Xiao told him he needed help finding out if there were any salt mines within the Beiping prefecture. This caused Zhu Gaoxiu to pause in complete confusion. He found the request quite strange. A salt mine? Brother-in-law, are you planning to get into the salt trade? Li Xiao gave a small nod, warning him not to say a word until it was done. Zhu Gaoxiu looked conflicted. But brother-in-law, he started, those salt mines do produce salt, but it's all poisonous. It's common knowledge, really. He reminded him that eating it would be fatal. Li Xiao simply smiled and told him to follow instructions, promising it wouldn't be poisonous. He had a clever plan, of course. Hearing such certainty, Zhu Gaoxiu chose to believe him. All right then, he said with a nod, leave this matter to me. I'll take care of everything. He offered to let Li Xiao come along to investigate, but Li Xiao shook his head. He had other matters to attend to, and he hadn't seen the princess yet today. We see that the system store had refreshed its items, offering a mineral salt extraction method. It provided detailed steps: dissolution, precipitation, filtration, and evaporation. The process would yield high-quality, snow-white salt, perfectly optimized for the current era. However, it would cost 3,000 points to unlock. Other items were available too, like a bottle of Coca-Cola for 50 points or a tube of toothpaste for 100. To be honest, the variety was quite impressive. His current balance stood at 1,200 points. The previous day, he had wandered through Beiping without finding any real business opportunities. But as soon as he woke up and saw the store refresh, he knew what he had to do. To obtain the salt extraction method, he needed to earn 1,800 more points today. Zhu Gaoxiu laughed, telling him to go see his sister while he handled the search alone. Seeing how devoted Li Xiao was to his sister, he didn't want to trouble him further. Li Xiao thanked him, promising there would be plenty of benefits later. He could already imagine the look on his father-in-law's face when he heard the news. Besides, the upcoming Jingnan campaign in a few years would require a massive amount of wealth. In a way, he was planning ahead for everyone's future. Seeing a trace of concern on Li Xiao's face, Zhu Gaoxiu laughed it off, asking why they were talking about benefits between family. It was a small matter, after all. Li Xiao nodded in agreement. Soon after, Zhu Gaoxiu and Zhu Gaosui left the estate to hunt for salt mines, while Li Xiao turned his attention elsewhere. He began walking toward Yangon Pavilion. Since they had already met once, he figured a second meeting would be much easier to arrange, and he arrived shortly after. Upon reaching the pavilion, he knocked on the door, and Zhang Cuizi quickly came out to greet him. When he asked if the princess was in, Cuizi gave a playful giggle. She teased him, asking where he planned to kidnap her mistress today. He laughed it off, explaining that he had simply finished all the books in his own study. He suggested that the princess accompany him to read, so he could answer any question she might have. It was a smooth move, to be honest. Sure enough, after Cuizi went upstairs to report his arrival, Zhu Ningyun came down shortly after. This time, she seemed far less restrained as she approached him. With a graceful smile, she offered to lead Li Xiao to the estate's library, mentioning that she had also finished the books in her own room recently. She figured it was the perfect time to pick up some new ones. Li Xiao bowed politely, telling her it would be his absolute honor to accompany her. We follow them as they navigate the sprawling estate, passing through winding paths, over a stone bridge, and past a quiet lake and garden to reach the library. The library of the Prince of Yan's estate was quite grand, standing 3 stories tall. Coincidentally, Zhu Di had planned to spend his free afternoon there with Su Miaoyan. Just as the royal couple stepped out, they spotted their daughter and future son-in-law entering the building. It was a moment of perfect, if slightly awkward, timing. With a silent understanding, the two of them stepped back to avoid interrupting. Zhu Di noted with a smile how much the young couple reminded him of themselves. He felt a sense of deep satisfaction, while Su Miaoyan smiled, happy that Ningyun had found a husband who shared her intellectual interests. Zhu Di jokingly asked if they should still go in, but Su Miaoyan gave him a look, asking if he really wanted to disturb the young lover's peace. She pointed out that if they entered, the kids wouldn't feel comfortable staying. Zhu Di took the hint and suggested they go have tea together instead. Su Miaoyan agreed, suggesting they visit the jewelry shop to order some gold and silver pieces for the wedding. There was much to prepare, after all. She listed off the custom wedding robes and the dowry items that needed attention. Zhu Di sighed, remarking that these were matters for the women to handle. He initially tried to decline the shopping trip, but one sharp look from Su Miaoyan made him change his mind instantly. She couldn't help but chuckle at his quick surrender. As the royal couple left the estate arm in arm, we returned to the library, where Li Xiao was staring at the massive, overflowing bookshelves in pure awe. There were so many volumes that his head began to spin, leaving him unsure of where to even start. Zhu Ningyun smiled and stepped in to help him choose. She quoted Li Shimin, saying that history serves as a mirror to understand the rise and fall of nations. Reading history, she claimed, makes a person wise. She suggested they start with the historical records, picking out several volumes like the records of the 3 kingdoms and the Book of Liang for him to study. She selected the books with such focus that Li Xiao couldn't help but think how adorable she looked when she was serious. His eyes were filled with genuine affection. Though their connection had started because of the system, he found himself truly falling for the girl before him. Just then, a small moment caught his eye. As Zhu Ningyun stood on her tiptoes to reach a high shelf, the white veil of her hat fluttered slightly. In that brief second, he caught a glimpse of her profile. It was only a fleeting moment, but it was enough for him to realize just how beautiful his future wife truly was. Even a partial view was enough to stir his heart. That single glimpse left him lost in thought, and he found himself eagerly anticipating the day he could finally lift her veil and see Ningyun's face clearly. Zhu Ningyun seemed to feel his intense gaze lingering on her. She turned her head, and for a moment, their eyes met, causing her to blush with shyness. She quickly brought the books over and placed them on the table, suggesting these would be enough for now, as he couldn't possibly finish too many at once. Li Xiao agreed, noting how peaceful the library was, and suggested they sit together so he could ask her for guidance whenever he ran into something difficult. The library was furnished with elegant fine wood tables perfect for study. Zhu Ningyun quietly lit some soothing incense to set the mood for their reading session. She sat down obediently across from him. The room fell into a comfortable silence, so quiet that they could almost hear each other breathing as he began to read. He picked up a volume and began to flip through it carefully. After all, in a place like this, one really ought to show a bit of academic sincerity. As they sat face to face, the only sound remaining was the soft rustle of turning pages. Time ticked away, and Li Xiao actually found himself quite absorbed. He was reading with total concentration. Since ancient texts lacked punctuation and were read vertically from right to left, it required quite a bit of mental effort. He had to figure out where each sentence ended, causing him to frown in concentration one moment and smile the next when he found something interesting. They say a man is most charming when he is focused, and at this moment, Zhu Ningyun found it impossible to concentrate on her own book. Her future husband was right there. Sitting directly in front of her, he was a constant distraction. She kept wanting to steal a glance, and seeing him so serious sparked a sudden sense of admiration. She told herself that staring like this wasn't very ladylike, but the temptation was simply too strong for her to resist for very long. She reasoned that since her veil was hiding her face, he surely wouldn't notice her watching him. Her cheeks felt warm as she tried to stay composed. She stole another quiet look, and right then, the pleasant chime of the system rang in Li Zhao's ears. Zhu Ningyun's affection for him had increased by 3 points. With her favorability now at 67, the two of them continued to read together, though she couldn't stop herself from stealing those frequent, secret glances. Li Xiao was feeling quite pleased as he earned 100 sweet points, which triggered a massive 50 times critical multiplier for a total of 5,000 points. With his total now at 6,200, he was delighted to find he could farm points just by sitting and reading. He knew Ningyun was still stealing glances at him. He figured she must be falling for him. Time flies when one is focused, and soon enough, Zhang Suitsue arrived with their midday meal. We see them dine together in the library before returning to their books until sunset, when Li Xiao finally stretched and suggested they head back. Ningyun gave a soft, obedient nod and walked beside him. He carried her selected books for her, providing the perfect excuse to escort her to Yangon Pavilion. They returned by the same path, both slowing their pace instinctively, clearly wishing to linger together. Upon reaching a small lake, he came to a halt. He remarked on how beautiful the estate's scenery was before asking Ningyun for the lake's name. This time, he dropped the formal title of princess. Since Ningyun's affection had reached 67, he wanted to close the distance. Hearing him use her name, her voice became as soft as a humming bee. She whispered that it was Xiaochun Lake. He then pointed toward a small bridge and asked her what that was called. Zhu Ningyun explained gently that the bridge was built right when she was born, so her father named it Ning Bridge. Their steps grew even slower. It took them quite a while just to cross the bridge, which led to an octagonal pavilion. He repeated the name, Ning Bridge, to himself thoughtfully. He noted how the lake looked like the clouds in the sky, while the bridge itself represented her, the Ning, in the scenery. It was a quiet, poetic moment on the bridge. The name of the bridge seemed to echo in the evening air. Ning Bridge, a simple name, yet full of meaning for both of them. The atmosphere between them was growing increasingly tender. They stood there for a long moment, simply taking in the surroundings and each other's presence. The name of the bridge felt like a bridge between their hearts as they lingered by the water. It was a peaceful scene, the kind one wishes would last just a little bit longer. By Ning Bridge and Xiaochun Lake, even Zhu Di and Su Miaoyun, who were eavesdropping from afar, found themselves moved to silence. Su Miaoyun was utterly pleasantly surprised to hear such beautiful poetry spoken in plain language, wondering if this was truly her future son-in-law. She felt that if Ningyun married such a man, she would never suffer. Beneath the trees, the pool was not just clear water, but the sky itself, shattered among the floating weeds, sedimenting a rainbow-like dream. To seek that dream, one might steer a boat toward where the grass is greenest. Li Xiao continued to recite in a magnetic voice, speaking of singing aloud under a sky full of stars, his words flowing like the shimmering waves. But he could not sing. Quietness was his parting flute. Even the summer insects fell silent for him, for silence was the evening at Ning Bridge. At this moment, Zhu Ningyun's gaze, filled with growing adoration, was fixed entirely on him. She sensed this poem was written specifically for her. He continued his recitation, his voice becoming soft and light, saying that just as he had come quietly, so too would he depart. With a gentle wave of his sleeve, he wouldn't take even a single wisp of cloud. The whole world seemed to fall silent, save for the rustling wind. Zhu Ningyun's eyes grew slightly red with emotion, moved by the sheer beauty of the words. After a long silence, she finally looked up at him. She softly remarked on the beauty of the poem, admitting she had never heard anything like it, and asked him what kind of poetry it was. He smiled and explained it was vernacular poetry, a unique style, using simpler language to convey much deeper, more direct emotions. Deeply moved, she thanked him for writing it for her. Zhu Ningyun gathered her courage and looked directly into the eyes of the man before her. He met her gaze steadily, telling her he could do this for her for a lifetime. As soon as those words left his lips, we see that offering poetry to a loved one has a profound effect. Her deep affection earned him another 100 sweet points, triggering a 50 times critical multiplier for 5,000 points, bringing his total to 16,200. In just one day, while enjoying the process of falling in love, he had managed to farm over 10,000 points. To be honest, he was absolutely thrilled by how wonderful this life was becoming. From behind the distant trees, Zhu Di watched the two of them walk away, his eyes filled with genuine shock at the verses he had overheard. The lines about coming and going quietly echoed in his mind. Zhu Di found himself completely immersed in the unexpected beauty of this plain-spoken poetry. This particular poem made him recall a time in Nanjing when his son, Zhu Gaoxiu, tried his hand at vernacular poetry and was beaten by the emperor for it. It was a helpless comparison, really. While Li Xiao used words to bridge hearts, Gaoxiu's poetry was usually just a prelude to using his fists. Comparing his own son's attempts at vernacular poetry to this was like comparing night and day. Nearby, Su Miaoyun was equally full of praise for Li Zhao's genuine talent. She marveled at how he could make such simple language sound so beautiful, noting that Ningyun seemed to have already given him her heart. During the recitation, Su Miaoyun's gaze had remained fixed on her daughter, and she could sense that every one of the girl's movements was now infused with a deep, growing adoration. Yet, a small flicker of worry arose in her heart as she whispered to the prince that Li Xiao seemed far too skilled at pursuing women. For 3 years, their daughter had been melancholy. Yet just the other day he made her laugh uncontrollably, and today, a single poem had moved her to both sorrow and love. To be honest, it was quite a feat. She noted that Li Xiao's behavior was perfectly poised, romantic, and effortless, the marks of a seasoned veteran in matters of the heart. It made her wonder, how could such a man reach the age of 22 without ever having married? Zhu Di laughed softly, telling his consort not to worry, as Gao Shu had investigated him thoroughly. He explained that Li Xiao was a simple farmer who hadn't married because he was busy caring for his parents. After they passed, he spent a year in mourning. Since the prince's mansion had only announced the search for a son-in-law a month ago, there was no way he could have prepared for this moment in advance. It was all destiny, he claimed, reminding her that Master Yao had predicted their daughter would find a husband to grow old with in perfect harmony. Hearing this, Su Miaoyun felt much more at ease, realizing that Li Xiao was a man of great filial piety. She nodded in approval at the thought. The prince agreed, noting that while Li Xiao wished to care for his parents, they were no longer there. Thus, once he joined their household, they should treat him well. Zhu Di smiled, adding that what she saw as the skills of a veteran was, in his eyes, merely a sincere outpouring of true emotion. He believed Li Xiao was a man of integrity. Their daughter was sensitive and fragile, and she had clearly sensed that sincerity before opening her heart, which, naturally, was exactly what she needed. Filial, sincere, and as steady as a mountain, Su Miaoyun felt relieved, remarking that a man's judgment of another man is usually the most accurate. Since Li Xiao's parents were gone, she decided they would become his family and treat him as their own. By now, the sky had begun to turn a hazy, twilight black. Li Xiao escorted Ningyun back to the Yangon pavilion, helped her set down her books, and then took his leave with a polite bow, not overstaying his welcome. Ningyun went up to the 3rd floor, her eyes lingering on his retreating figure. Back in her room, her mind was filled with every little detail of their day together. She thought of them reading quietly in the library, and, of course, that beautiful poem. She realized she had to write those verses down immediately. She called for her maid, Tsitsue, to grind the ink quickly. Ningyun smoothed out a sheet of rice paper on her desk and began to capture the words that had captured her heart. As she finished writing the final line, "Quietly I leave, just as quietly as I came," Ningyun found herself more enchanted with the poem than ever. Her maid, Tsitsue, looked at the rice paper in genuine surprise, asking if this was truly a poem. Ningyun confirmed it was a vernacular piece by Li Xiao. Ningyun's hands trembled slightly with excitement as she marveled at how beautiful such simple language could be. Tsue was equally delighted by his skill. She remarked that Li Xiao's talent was truly astonishing. Turning to her maid, Ningyun then asked what she thought of him as a person. Tsue thought for a moment before deciding he was brilliant, handsome, and quite frankly, a perfect match for the princess. Ningyun carefully rolled up the paper. She handled the scroll with such care, one might think it was made of gold rather than ink and paper. After a brief hesitation, Ningyun voiced her lingering doubt about the nature of romantic feelings. Tsue simply pointed out the obvious signs of affection. The man had cooked for her and written poetry. If that wasn't love, Tsue wondered what was. She looked at the princess with a touch of envy. She joked that if she could find a husband even half as good as Li Xiao, she'd wake up laughing. Ningyun quickly asked what was so great about him. Tsue insisted he was a rare find, the kind you couldn't find even if you searched with a lantern. To be honest, she was still thinking about his cooking. She admitted she was still craving yesterday's meal and begged to go along next time. Ningyun teased her for only thinking about her stomach. Despite the teasing, the memory of that delicious food made Ningyun smile. She agreed to find an opportunity to take her maid along next time. She decided she would give Li Xiao a sachet as a return gift for his poem. Taking it out, she asked Tsue if the craftsmanship was acceptable. Tsue looked at it, and, to be perfectly honest, the needlework was quite ordinary. She suggested that perhaps they should start over and make a new one. Ningyun agreed, feeling the same way. Meanwhile, we returned to Li Xiao, who had just arrived home and was eager to check his system's shop. After washing up, he hurried to his room and locked the door. For a whole year, he had looked at these items with longing, but no way to buy them. Today, he finally knew what it felt like to be a wealthy man. The system shop had refreshed, offering a method for extracting mineral salt. It provided detailed steps, dissolving, filtering, and evaporating, to create high-quality, snow-white salt. A very lucrative prospect, indeed. The system automatically optimized the method for his current era, costing 3,000 points. He also saw a bottle of Coca-Cola for 50 points. There was even a tube of toothpaste for 100. He decided to clear out the shop, feeling quite satisfied with his newfound fortune. Crossing his legs, Li Xiao sighed contentedly, thinking how wonderful it felt to be wealthy as he spent 3,150 points to clear out the shop. His personal storage now held the manual for mineral salt extraction, a tube of toothpaste, and a bottle of Coca-Cola. With a single thought, he retrieved the soda. It had been so long since he'd tasted it. He twisted the cap and drank deeply, the familiar fizz hitting his throat. For a moment, he felt as though he were back in the modern era, cool, refreshing, and utterly exhilarating. But he couldn't stop there. Next, he pulled the salt extraction manual from his storage and flipped through it, noting that every single step was recorded in great detail. The book even included helpful illustrations. With his intelligence score now at 7, well above the average of 5, he quickly grasped the principles. He committed the process to memory. Now, all he needed was a salt mine. With this method, he could produce salt as white as snow. Compared to the coarse, bitter salt of this era, his product would be a complete revelation. To be honest, it wasn't even a fair competition. He listed the necessary materials on paper, planning to have Gao Su help him procure them later. And just like that, the next morning arrived. As the sun rose, Li Xiao climbed out of bed to find the servants had already prepared a breakfast of steamed buns, fried dough, and soy milk. While he ate, he checked the system shop's daily refresh. Today's offerings were quite intriguing. Archery proficiency for 500 points. A small attribute gift pack for 1,000, and a pack of amoxicillin for another 1,000 points. It was a tempting selection. He chose to clear the shop once again. The importance of the attribute pack went without saying, and archery was a vital skill in this age. But the amoxicillin? That was a true treasure. In a world without modern medicine, an antibiotic was essentially a second life in a bottle. The system processed the purchases. His archery skill rose to the primary level, and he felt the attribute pack take effect immediately. His strength increased by 1, and the medicine was safely stored away. Suddenly, he felt a warm sensation spreading through his entire body. The warmth lasted for about 10 seconds before fading, leaving his mind filled with a sudden, instinctive understanding of how to handle a bow. It felt as though he had practiced archery for years, his muscles now possessing the necessary memory. He decided to open his status panel. We see that Li Xiao's strength is now 10, double the human average, while his agility sits at 8, far surpassing any ordinary person. His intelligence remains a sharp 7. He has no active combat skills yet, but he has certainly become a formidable presence in this world. His inventory was now a strange mix of treasures, a pair of eternal lover's rings, toothpaste, and that precious amoxicillin. With his strength now at 10, double the average, Li Xiao felt a surge of vitality more intense than anything he'd ever known. He had just finished his breakfast when Zhu Gaoxiu strode in, announcing he had spent all day yesterday tracking down a salt mine. We notice Gaoxiu has dropped the word future and now simply calls him brother-in-law. A bit premature, perhaps, but effective. Li Xiao told him there was no rush and asked if he'd eaten. Gaoxiu admitted he'd rushed over the moment he woke up. Without standing on ceremony, Gaoxiu sat down and polished off a whole tray of steamed buns in what seemed like seconds. Between bites, he explained that 30 miles southwest of the city, in Danzhuang, there were 2 salt mines available. They belonged to a wealthy family named Zhang, whose deed dated back to the Yuan dynasty and remained valid in the Ming. Since the salt was bitter, the land was worth very little. After breakfast, they decided to head to the training grounds. This was part of Gaoxiu's morning routine. Not long after, they arrived at the martial field and began with a few laps. To his own surprise, Li Xiao kept pace with Gaoxiu easily, barely even-winded. Gaoxiu then offered to teach him archery. After firing a few shots, Gaoxiu was stunned. Li Xiao could now draw a heavy bow and hit the bullseye from 20 paces. Gaoxiu asked in disbelief if he truly had never practiced before. Li Xiao just smiled, claiming it was his first time. He joked that practicing with Gaoxiu for a few days must have helped. Gaoxiu insisted this was more than just help. He called Li Xiao a natural-born genius. Li Xiao laughed it off, modestly claiming he was still far behind the younger man. After another round of practice, Gaoxiu was thoroughly impressed. Li Xiao then suggested they head out to buy that salt mine. He asked Gaoxiu if he could borrow some funds, worried his own silver wouldn't be enough to cover the purchase. Gaoxiu pulled out a heavy purse, telling him not to mention borrowing. He could just consider it an investment. As they walked toward the estate gates, Gaoxiu couldn't stop marveling at Li Xiao's rapid progress. Then, a notification chimed. Zhu Ningyun's favorability had increased by 1, reaching 75. It seemed she was watching from the shadows of the pavilion. We see her watching silently from the pavilion, though Li Xiao noted that favorability seems much harder to increase the higher it gets. He began calculating how to reach 99 to claim the grand prize, before catching himself. He shouldn't be so driven by pure utility. He told himself that if he treated her with genuine care, there was no need to obsess over the timing. He quickly corrected his mindset. Gaoxiu noticed his expression and asked what made him so happy, just as the servants brought out 2 horses. Li Xiao snapped back to reality. He explained he was thinking of the salt mine, noting that once the deal was done, our Prince Yan's mansion would surely rise to new heights. Speaking is an art, and by saying our mansion, he made Gaoxiu feel incredibly comfortable. The younger man laughed, placing his trust in his brother-in-law. However, Gaoxiu grew worried, reminding him that the mines only produced toxic salt. Otherwise, the imperial court would have seized them long ago. Li Xiao remained confident, telling him they would know the truth once they actually produced the salt. To be honest, his certainty was infectious. Gaoxiu led a horse over and told Li Xiao to mount up, eager to gallop there and settle the matter before the day was out. Li Xiao froze for a moment. He didn't actually know how to ride, having only been led in circles at a tourist track in his past life. Gaoxiu insisted it was simple, just get on. Li Xiao decided to give it a try right there in front of the mansion gates. There was a mounting block nearby, but he simply stepped into the stirrup and leaped lightly into the saddle, thanks to his enhanced strength and agility. Once seated, he had to ask the most basic of questions, how to make it move. Gao Xiu patiently explained to squeeze with his legs. He told him to flick the reins as well. Li Xiao tried it, and the horse indeed began to walk. Then, he asked how to pick up speed. Gao Xiu gave a mischievous grin and whipped the horse's hindquarters. The animal bolted instantly, but Li Xiao's reflexes kept him in the saddle. The horse flew down the road, and he felt as if the world were rushing backward while the wind roared in his ears. Gao Xiu laughed loudly, galloping ahead and shouting for his brother-in-law to keep up. A perfectly ordinary morning commute, it seems. Following behind, Li Xiao gripped the reins for dear life, terrified of being thrown off while desperately trying to steer. He shouted for pedestrians to make way, realizing that riding wasn't quite as difficult as he had feared once he got moving. He quickly grasped the essentials. He wasn't an expert yet, but at least he could steer and stay on the horse's back. Brother-in-law, you truly are a natural talent to learn riding so quickly, Gao Xiu remarked, his own horsemanship being quite superb as he easily controlled his speed to ride side by side. Li Xiao accepted the praise of being a natural talent with a perfectly clear conscience. After all, he had to be capable. Gao Xiu laughed, teasing that if he wanted to keep up, he would still need a lot of practice. It was clear the younger man truly enjoyed Li Xiao's personality. And so, the two of them galloped all the way out of the city gates. There was no need for an inspection. The guards spotted them from a distance and immediately cleared the way. By noon, they finally arrived at a place called Dadong Village, a rather large settlement. We see farmland stretching in every direction, and not far to the southeast, two massive rocky mountains come into view. The peaks looked almost like snow-capped mountains, shimmering white and completely barren of any vegetation. This was the place, the salt mines. We're buying those, Li Xiao thought, his eyes practically gleaming. They entered the village and soon found a large, prominent estate. It was the home of the local gentry, quite grand in scale. After explaining their intent, they were quickly invited into the Zhang family courtyard. There they met the head of the household, an elderly man of about 60 named Zhang Maojin. You wish to buy the mountains? He asked. Maojin greeted them with a smile, leaning on his cane. One look at their fine clothes told him these were no ordinary people, but sons of wealthy families. He noted that the mountains were ancestral property, but if the price was right, he was certainly open to a deal. To be honest, he seemed quite eager. Li Xiao smiled and confirmed that they intended to buy the salt mines. Maojin looked a bit surprised and asked what they planned to use them for. Li Xiao answered truthfully. They planned to process the salt for sale. Upon hearing this, Maojin couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. He thought them quite reckless. Using toxic salt for trade was practically asking for trouble. It seemed these two wealthy young men weren't particularly bright. However, the old man was a shrewd businessman himself. He smiled and warned them that his mountains would not come cheap. Li Xiao got straight to the point, asking for the price. Maojin hesitated, wondering just how much silver he could actually get out of them. Li Xiao thought for a moment and held up 5 fingers, assuming 500 taels would be a fair offer for 2 mountains. Maojin's target, however, was only 20. Seeing the gesture, the old man immediately blurted out 50 taels. It was an unexpected windfall. Who would have thought 2 mountains cost so little? Despite his delight, Li Xiao feigned a look of pain and asked if he could lower the price. Maojin's hand trembled on his cane, terrified the deal might slip away. The old man panicked, asking how the young man could regret his own price so quickly. Li Xiao was simply stunned that the offer was accepted with such haste. Beside him, Gao Xiu chimed in, shouting that 50 taels for a broken mountain was far too much. In his eyes, even 10 taels was an overpayment. Zhang Maojin frowned, asking how they could call it a broken mountain when it was his ancestral property. He told them if they found it too expensive, they should leave. Li Xiao, pretending to dislike haggling over a few taels, grit his teeth and agreed to the 50 taels. It was a performance worthy of an award, really. Gao Xiu, being a wealthy man himself, didn't truly care about the silver and simply watched. Maojin praised the young brother for having such a sharp eye for value. While the old man spoke beautiful words about his excellent salt mountain, deep down, he was laughing at what he perceived to be 2 absolute fools. He hurriedly produced the land deed and a contract, insisting they sign immediately. He made it clear that he would only accept payment in hard silver. Gao Xiu pulled out a bag of silver and thudded it onto the table. Maojin immediately weighed out 50 taels on his small scale and grinned once he confirmed the amount. He suggested they start with a private contract, and the old man drafted it with impressive speed. Soon, both parties had signed the initial agreement. Once the matter was settled, Maojin produced another piece of paper with a smile, suggesting a second private agreement to clarify a few unpleasant details. He stated that since the mountain was now theirs, he would bear no responsibility for anything that happened. The old man was being quite shrewd, to be honest. He waited until the silver was secured before mentioning this, fearing he might scare them off. Li Xiao, however, didn't mind and checked the contract over. The document essentially washed the old man's hands of any guilt if the salt produced from the mountain ended up poisoning someone. Li Xiao simply waved it off. He declared it wasn't a problem and signed it readily, leaving Maojin absolutely delighted. And so, the 2 parties made their way to the local government office. As a local member of the gentry, the old man had connections at the yamen, and the process went exceptionally smoothly. Everything was handled with professional ease. The land deed was stamped with the official seal, and the property was registered in Li Zhao's name. The deal was done, and the old man bid them a cheerful farewell. Outside the office, the old man walked away in high spirits. Gao Xiu, however, felt the price had been too high, suspecting the mountain wasn't worth 50 taels. Gao Xiu didn't care about the money itself, but seeing the old man so happy made him feel a bit cheated. Li Xiao just laughed, telling him they were the ones profiting. He noted that buying 2 mountains for 50 taels was an incredible bargain. When asked what was next, he naturally suggested they go see their new property. After all, it belonged to them now. Not long after, the two of them were back on their horses, riding toward the salt mines located just outside the village. Our destination, Dongzhuang, was about 5 li away, where 2 connected mines spanned nearly 1,000 mu, enough to be mined for over 100 years. After surveying the area, Li Xiao finally had a clear plan in mind. He produced a list and handed it to Gao Xiu, telling him to send men to buy these items. These supplies were to be delivered straight to the mines, and he also instructed Gao Xiu to gather a group of skilled craftsmen for the task ahead.